I used to believe that grief softened people, that sorrow, once shared, braided families closer. After my husband died, I clung to that belief the way a drowning woman clings to driftwood. My daughter, Mary, had been my last tether to normalcy. Her smile, her gentle questions about whether I was eating enough, her insistence that I join her and Robert on a healing mountain trip, all of it felt like an anchor in the storm. I thought I was lucky to have her. I thought I was loved, that life has a cruel way of revealing what we refuse to see. The first ripple of doubt appeared at the airport, hidden beneath the hum of rolling luggage and the hollow announcements echoing across the terminal. Mary and Robert walked ahead of me, whispering with an intensity that seemed unnecessary for a simple vacation. When I caught Robert's eye, he forced a smile so tight it looked painful. Mary avoided mine altogether. I told myself they were arguing about something trivial. Newly married couples often did. I had no right to pry, yet unease followed me like a shadow dot at the security checkpoint. Everything shifted. I handed over my passport, expecting the usual bored nod. Instead, the officer scanning it froze, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. He motioned to a colleague. They spoke in low, clipped tones. My stomach nodded. "Ma'am," he said, "I need you to step aside for a secondary screening." Mary stiffened. Robert's jaw twitched. They covered it with concern, asking me if I was okay, insisting it must be a random check. But their voices trembled in a way they couldn't disguise. Before I could respond, a federal agent, tall, formal, with a badge that glinted under harsh airport lights, approached and quietly presented himself. He didn't smile. He didn't pretend this was routine. He simply gestured for me to follow him. My heart thudded, but I complied. We stepped into a small, windowless room, a stark space that smelled of disinfectant and unease. The agent closed the door, then turned toward me with an expression I still dream about. Part warning, part pity, part something I couldn't name. "Mrs. Eleanor," he began, "I need you to stay calm, and I need you to listen carefully." A thin film of cold coated my skin. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "Whatever happens next, do not trust your daughter or her husband." My knees weakened, and for a moment I thought I might collapse. "What are you talking about?" He paused, choosing his words with surgical precision. "Your safety is in immediate danger." The room shrank around me. My breath shattered in my throat. In that instant, every forced smile, every secretive whisper, every subtle shift in Mary's gaze rearranged itself into a pattern I had never imagined. Mother's faith is a stubborn thing, but even faith has limits, and mine was about to break. The agent's words echoed through my mind long after they left his lips, rearranging everything I thought I knew about my own child. But before he explained anything further, he asked me a question that seemed strangely out of place. "Mrs. Eleanor, how close are you with your daughter?" I hesitated because the answer used to be simple. "We were close," I said slowly. "At least, I believe we were." He studied my face as if searching for cracks in a fragile sculpture. "Tell me about her." The request wasn't casual. It felt like an examination. So I began. Mary had always been the quiet one, intelligent, composed, with a talent for hiding her emotions behind a serene smile. Growing up, she rarely rebelled, never raised her voice, and seldom questioned rules. I mistook that calmness for kindness. I convinced myself that her stillness meant stability, even maturity. But now, replaying her recent behavior, I saw something else: distance, calculation, a kind of polite detachment that I had dismissed as stress from her new job. Then there was Robert, charming, ambitious, and careful with his words. He entered our lives with bouquets and compliments, a man who seemed too perfect to critique. My husband had adored him. I had tried to follow suit. Yet some instinct deep inside me had never fully settled around him. He was always watching, always measuring, as if cataloging the world around him for weaknesses he could exploit. Only now did those impressions resurface with sharp clarity. The agent listened without interrupting, but there was a heaviness in his eyes that made my stomach twist. "Mrs. Eleanor," he finally said, "your daughter and son-in-law have been under quiet surveillance for almost 8 months." My breath caught. Surveillance? For what? For fraudulent activity, suspicious financial filings, and communication patterns linked to insurance exploitation cases. The word struck like a slap. Insurance? I repeated, disbelief choking my voice. He nodded. 3 months ago, a large life insurance policy was filed under your name. The signatures were forged. The floor beneath me seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. My name? My voice trembled. Why would they? His answer was merciless. Their communications suggest a planned accident during your mountain trip. The location they chose is known for its steep drop-offs and limited surveillance. The timing and arrangements match patterns we've seen before. I felt my chest tighten, each breath sharper than the last. Betrayal is a slow, burning thing until it isn't, until it becomes a wildfire. I know this is difficult, he continued gently, but you need to understand the seriousness of what we're dealing with. Your daughter and her husband are not planning a vacation. They're planning an outcome. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. The life I thought I understood had fractured in a single moment, yet this was only the beginning. The agent's revelations felt like being submerged in ice water, shocking at first, then numbing, then unbearably painful. I struggled to keep my composure, but he seemed to anticipate every tremor in my voice, every flicker in my eyes. We can't act without evidence that holds in court, he explained. Right now, we have suspicion, motive, and patterns. But we need confirmation of intent. What does that have to do with me? I whispered, everything, he replied. You are the intended target. The words were so stark, so unapologetically direct, that I felt myself recoiling. I had always imagined danger as something distant, something that happened to strangers on the news. Yet here I was, sitting under fluorescent airport lights, being told that my own child was plotting my death. The agent leaned forward, lowering his voice. I believe they're planning to act during the trip, which means we need you to help us gather the final piece of proof. I stared at him, horrified. You want me to go with them? His silence was my answer. My mouth went dry. They'll kill me. They'll try, he corrected gently. But we won't let them succeed. It was meant to reassure me, but the words only deepened my fear. He explained how I would be monitored, how every moment would be recorded, how undercover agents would stay close enough to intervene if necessary. But even with all those precautions, the idea of returning to Mary and Robert, pretending nothing was wrong, felt like swallowing shards of glass. I shook my head. I don't know if I can do this. You can, he said softly, because you deserve the truth, and because we need to stop them before they hurt you or someone else. A faint buzzing grew behind my ears. My thoughts scattered, tangled between disbelief and dread. I had given Mary everything, my time, my savings, my devotion. She had been my only child, the person I woke up each morning determined to care for. And Robert, he had convinced me he loved her, loved us. Yet all along, they had been building a future on my grave. I swallowed hard. What do you need me to do? Act normal. Let them believe you trust them. We'll guide you through the rest. He paused, then added, and if I say a phrase you don't expect, no matter how strange it seems, you follow my lead immediately. I nodded. Though fear coiled tightly inside me, the agent stood, smoothing the front of his jacket. It's time to step back out. They're waiting. My legs felt heavy as he opened the door. The hallway outside hummed with oblivious travelers, families laughing, couples complaining about long lines, people immersed in their own uncomplicated worlds. As I walked toward Mary and Robert, their faces shifting into forced concern, I realized something with chilling clarity. The people who wanted me dead were the very people who once promised never to leave my side, and now I had to walk beside them, willingly. Mary's expression brightened the moment she saw me approach, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was too swift, too rehearsed, like an actor returning to the stage after missing her cue. Robert stepped closer, placing a hand on my shoulder with a gentleness that now felt ominous. "Everything okay, Mom?" he asked, voice warm but strangely hollow. I forced a nod. "Just a random screening. Nothing serious." Mary exhaled in exaggerated relief, yet her fingers twitched as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She was nervous, not about me, but about something unraveling behind the scenes. The agent's warnings replayed in my mind, sharpening every detail around me, the tension in Robert's jaw, the way Mary avoided eye contact, the hurried whisper they shared when they thought I wasn't listening. We moved toward the gate, my heartbeat matching the rhythm of my footsteps. Every second felt stretched thin, as though time itself was waiting for me to make the wrong move. On the plane, they insisted I sit between them. Robert smiled as he buckled my seatbelt for me, an action that should have been caring but now felt claustrophobic. Mary leaned over, her voice soft. "You're awfully quiet, Mom. Are you feeling sick?" "Slightly tired," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "I didn't sleep much last night." She nodded sympathetically, but her eyes flicked to Robert. A silent question passed between them, one I couldn't decipher but instinctively feared. As the plane lifted off, the hum of the engine became a backdrop to my spiraling thoughts. I remembered childhood afternoons when Mary would fall asleep on my lap, her tiny fingers curled around mine. I remembered the day I helped her pack for college, proud and terrified. I remembered believing, without question, that my daughter loved me. Now, that certainty lay shattered. Halfway through the flight, Robert opened his tablet and angled it so I couldn't see the screen. His shoulders blocked the view, but the quick flashes of text and the stiffening of his posture told me it wasn't a movie he was watching. It was communication plans, updates, perhaps surveillance of their own. The agent's final instruction echoed in my ears. "If I say a phrase you don't expect, follow my lead immediately." I clung to those words like a lifeline. When the plane landed, the cool air of the mountain airport brushed my skin, yet the chill inside me remained. The landscape was breathtaking, vast forest, towering cliffs, a sky washed in fading evening light, but beneath its beauty, I sensed danger lurking like a predator. Mary walked ahead, talking briskly about dinner reservations and scenic overlooks. Robert dragged the luggage with a confidence that suggested he already knew the terrain. I followed in silence, studying every movement, every fake smile, every overly polite gesture. At the car rental counter, Robert leaned close to Mary and whispered, "Tonight?" Her nod was almost imperceptible, but I saw it, and for the first time, I understood this trip had already begun its deadly countdown. The drive to the mountain lodge felt impossibly long, the winding road coiling through dense forest like a serpent guiding us toward its nest. Mary sat in the front seat beside Robert, pointing at scenic overlooks and pretending enthusiasm, but her voice lacked warmth. Every word felt rehearsed, as if she were performing a version of herself she no longer believed in. I sat in the back, hands folded tightly in my lap, watching the trees blur into a darkening wall. My thoughts raced, trying to stitch together the fragments of the life I thought I understood. I kept wondering what moment had shattered my daughter's love, what fracture had grown into something so monstrous that she would stand quietly beside a man planning her mother's death. At the lodge, A rustic wooden building hugged by pine trees and shadows. Robert checked us in while Mary walked me to the lobby fireplace. The heat should have comforted me, but it only sharpened the cold forming at the base of my spine. "Mom," she said softly, brushing imaginary dust off my sleeve. "I want you to enjoy tonight, okay? You've been through so much lately." Her touch lingered a moment too long, gentle, almost mournful. It struck me then that Mary wasn't purely villain or victim. Something inside her was struggling weakly, desperately, yet she had chosen a side. And it wasn't mine. We unpacked in adjoining rooms. Their door stayed open, mine slightly ajar. I could hear their hushed voices drifting through the hallway. After dinner, less people, look natural. Don't hesitate. It'll be quick. She trusts us. Each line carved deeper into my resolve. My pulse throbbed at my temples, but I forced myself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. Panic would only feed their plan. Composure was my shield. At dinner, the table was set by a wide window overlooking a steep valley, a sight both magnificent and menacing. Robert steered every conversation, guiding it to safe, shallow topics. Mary barely ate, her fork scraping her plate with an anxious rhythm. I answered their questions, laughed where expected, and played the role of the oblivious mother, fragile yet trusting. The agent had instructed me to watch for him, to look for any signal, any presence in the distance. But every face in the restaurant looked ordinary. No badge, no familiar eyes, no silent promise of protection. Standing from the table, Robert stretched and said, "The overlooked trail is beautiful at night. Moonlight hits the valley like silver. Mom, you'd love it." Mary forced a smile. "Just a short walk. 10 minutes." The invitation wrapped itself in the illusion of kindness. But I felt the truth vibrating beneath it. This was the moment. They engineered. Opportunity. The night they had chosen. My heart pounded so hard, I feared they could hear it. Yet I rose from my seat, steadying myself with a breath so slow it felt like prayer. "Of course," I murmured. "Lead the way." And as we stepped outside into the cold mountain air, I sensed the cliff waiting somewhere in the darkness, silent, patient, ready.